You see, now normally if the coolant reservoir was a little bit on the low side, I would just grab yay and dump it into yay, right? But as you can see, that's not gonna happen. Which leads us to the topic of the day. Do the tools make the mechanic? Let's talk about it. Senor Jefe's truck. Let's check it out. Not sure what he's got going on here today. He's inside right now. All right. So we had a discussion topic for the day. Do the tools make the mechanic? That's a discussion topic, and we are going to talk about it more in depth when we are back at the house. But for right now, I'm going to give you a panoramic video of some of the cool tools that Jeff has on his truck. A lot of these you're going to already notice some of the names like Liesel or Lyle. You're going to see some Sunex products. You're going to see some Gear Wrench. You're going to see some Milwaukee. You're going to see some Proto. You're going to see some Channel Lock. You're going to see some Platinum. You're going to see Lang. There's going to be a lot of these individual tools that you're going to find also on that amazing of Zons. Okay, and I know for a fraction cheaper there is some benefit to the tool truck, and we'll talk about that in another video because I'm sure we haven't talked about it in a handful of years. But concurrently, we're going to talk about why certain tools do help the mechanic perform their job just a little bit better, make them a little bit more efficient, make them a little bit more productive, and overall pay you more as a tech. Do the tools, or can the tools that you have as a mechanic that you purchase, that you spend your hard-earned money on, make you a overall better mechanic? Okay, because this is a big question. I mean, this can be debated back and forth. We're going to talk about a few of these scenarios in our head and talk about past, present, future, stuff like that. The old mechanic mentality for many years was if you don't have the tool, you're not allowed to do the job, or you shouldn't be allowed to do the job because you don't have the tool. And then there was another rule that they had, you borrow it 3 times, you got to buy it yourself, because obviously it's a tool that you need and that you use all the time, and you're not going to borrow mine to break it or use it when I might need it. So that was like another thought process, right? More times than not, especially nowadays, that's all changed. Okay, I'm finding more and more shops, more and more people, more and more mechanics and technicians that are of the same mindset of, hey, you know what, I'm cool with loaning it out to you or whatever. You know, obviously there are certain things that might be a little bit of an irritant, but for the most part, more people than not are more about sharing is caring. They're not going to have an issue with you borrowing their tool. But so a lot of technicians and mechanics today, they kind of slide. There's certain things that they absolutely will not buy, no matter how many times you loan it out to them. They'll just find somebody else to borrow it from or whatever, or they'll just keep borrowing it from you. And that's just the way that it goes, okay? But that's a lot more forgiving nowadays than it was before. From before, mechanics were not so forgiving. I remember when I first started off in this automotive industry and tried to work for my very first dealership ever, I went to go borrow, I believe it was like a ball joint press tool. I thought the shop would have had one because, you know, it's a special tool, and in community college we were taught there's a special tool room and all you gotta do is check it out and then you can put it back. But basic hand tools you were responsible for. Wasn't that way when I stepped into the dealership. The special tools did not involve ball joint press kits and things like that. Special tools were like special adapters that were specifically made for certain ball joint presses, you know, and they may have at one point in time bought a ball joint press that was loaned out to whomever needed it. But over time, a lot of those special tools kind of go missing because or stolen, or they just grow feet and walk away, right? So, you know, more times than not, dealerships kind of started going back to almost this old school approach to it. And that's, you know, you're responsible to pay for those types of tools because they've already bought it one time and they're not going to want to buy it again and again and again to maybe have some other tech pick up and walk off with it. Okay, so presently, let's talk about present versus past. Past, you had hand ratchets, right? 32 tooth count, Craftsman, the things, you know what I'm talking about. You'd have to swing it almost 45 or 90 degrees before you got like one click out of it. For a lot of tight areas that we're in, you don't have that kind of swing or that kind of degree angle of swing. And more times than not, you need a ratchet that's like 72 teeth or 80 teeth or 88 or 90 or 120, right? There's all these different styles of ratchets now. So before, you may have had extreme difficulty and problems using your Craftsman 32 tooth 3/8 drive stubby ratchet versus maybe an 88 tooth Matco that's like 20 inches long or something like that. You might have been able to totally get to it a lot easier, which makes you a little bit more productive in my opinion. And obviously you're going to be more comfortable and you're going to be able to get that job done a little bit faster. Air tools versus cordless tools. Okay, there are some situations where you don't have enough air hose to get out to the vehicle that you're working on, and cordless tools end up playing a big role in today's automotive industry. So those tools can absolutely make or break you, especially if you're on a fly or you're a tow truck driver, need to do a little side road repair or whatever on somebody's car just to get them on top of the flatbed. Yes, absolutely, cordless tools now play a bigger role than air tools ever did. And it's obviously hand tools, you could always go by hand. But do you really want to sit there messing with a tire for, 15, 20 minutes when it could take you less than 5 to take it off with a cordless gun? You see what I'm saying? Yes, there are air attachments to the tow trucks. You could still use an air hose. I was just using it as an example. Maybe you're a DIY and you have a cordless Milwaukee and you break down the side of the road before and you're just like done in like 5 minutes, right? Or 10 minutes versus like, and you got to do it by hand and use the old school, 4-post beam to try to twist off these lug nuts that were over torqued by somebody zapping them on with an air gun. Just food for thought. There are certain tools that make your job a little bit easier and faster, like today. I would have had extreme difficulty figuring out some other kind of way, maybe like putting it in a little tiny free coffee cup and pouring a little bit in at a time until eventually I got it to the mark. By having that little Mighty Vac push tool, I filled it up quicker and it was way easier than trying to figure out how to do it one teacup at a time. All right, so we've mentioned hand tools versus pneumatic versus cordless. We've mentioned just the know-how alone of things of not what not to take off, what to take off can obviously make you a little bit faster as well. Which tools actually help enable you to go faster versus those that kind of slow you down and disable the overall production, or at least how much time you're on job for. Because let's face it, time is still money, and if there's some kind of tool out there that can make your job easier, make it to where you're working smarter, not harder, make it to where you're a little bit more faster on the RPM versus how slow you can be by doing it by hand, then imagine all the health things that go into it, okay? Imagine like, twisting your wrist like several times over and over and over to take off a fastener or a screw or something like that versus using something that's pneumatic or something that's cordless that zaps it right off and you're not really twisting or manipulating your wrist or shoulder or anything like that. Then you have certain things for leverage, okay? Back in the day, they had a 5-piece pry bar set. And aside from that, they would just use poles, right? Metal poles for extra added leverage to slip over the end of the ratchet or to stick under the tire. Nowadays, you got oversized pry bars. So, oversized pry bar necessary? No, but if you don't have a pole laying around anywhere that's heavy duty and not hollowed out or something like that, it very well could be beneficial to have an oversized pry bar. Having a pole is still a tool of the trade that you want to keep somewhere within the shop. Jacks, jack stands, computers, scan tools, okay, even down to the pockets, even down to a pocket reader versus a scan tool that has bidirectional control or manufacturer specific reading capability, or ABS relearn capability, or reading capabiliity, steering inclination reset, oil value reset, all these different things that come on certain scan tools that you wouldn't get with your run-of-the-mill basic pocket reader, you know. And then of course you have these higher end ones that have 4-channel scopes, or you can have 12 to 16 channel scopes if you just buy a scope for itself. You have certain scan tools that can program software and certain scan tools that cannot. You have certain scan tools that can program keys, and you have certain scan tools that cannot. So absolutely, yes, to a certain degree, the tools can help aid in making you a better mechanic overall, because it gives you so many more capabilities than just your run-of-the-mill DIY. I got my 243-piece gear wrench mechanic set, and I can do anything and everything out of that box with a pair of screwdrivers and a couple pairs of pliers. Yeah, you might have the knowledge to be able to do a lot of that. How long would it take you versus somebody that has all these other things? How well you're able to diagnose something versus somebody that has a lot of different testers to be able to properly diagnose. All these things definitely tossed into the equation can absolutely make you a better mechanic. Now, I'm not trying to take away from the guys that know how to wrench, that have been doing it for 10, 20, 30 plus years, that know their way around a car, that know their way around using a test light to diagnose electrical issues. Okay, those guys are diamond in the rough, right? Those are the guys that had to learn it the hard way when they had nothing available to make them faster than they were. They just had to be fast with what they had, their brain and a quick mechanic set. But obviously nowadays you got a lot of those mechanics that are very happy that new technology has come out, that there's different tools that help enable them to make them faster and more productive on the line. I just saw Flat Rate Master's video today. After 9.5 years of wrenching at this shop, they let him go. Said that he wasn't moving too fast. That's kind of effed up. I mean, if that's the case, it's not the first time I've heard of something like that happening. We had a guy once upon a time ago, a while back, that after about nearly a decade of wrenching there, was a little bit slower than the rest of everybody else. And that's the reason why they chose to let him go. They didn't give him a 3-month severance package. They said, we'll give you another 2 weeks to a month, or you can just call it now. It's up to you. You know, we won't fight you on it. If you want to file for unemployment, we understand. The company needs to go another direction. And he understood, and he rolled out. So yes, speed is still a thing. And if you go to work for a dealership nowadays, it is definitely a big deal, okay? If you're not maintaining 100% or better on a paycheck to paycheck basis, you got about 2 paychecks to figure it the F out, or you are terminated and they will go another direction. They don't give you 10 years. They'll give you 2 pay periods, and you better figure it out. Someone wants to replace the wiper blades, just determining length, using yet something else that's pretty common here, tape measure. Now, obviously, the tools do not all the way make or break the mechanic. You do have to have a certain level of know-how. And having that know-how is through experience, right? So after wrenching for so long, you start learning all the different tools of the trade, what to take off, what not to take off, which tool you originally used that made your life extremely difficult, which tool you now use because it makes your life less difficult. There are tools that are like that as well. Quick examples, palm ratchets. Palm ratchets have their time and place. Super long ratchets with more leverage have their time and place. All depends on what you're doing. Another one of those handy tools is the brake lathe. Not everybody does this anymore. Some shops actually have an on-car brake lathe, which really does true the rotor to the hub. But this is an old school machine. It's an old school tool, and not many shops turn rotors anymore. Most shops just R&R, remove and replace them. So if you're able to do that, it saves the customer some cost, but you have a little bit more skill set at it. All right, and figured I'd just go ahead and throw a quick little toolbox update in the mix of the video today. Show you guys I did bring the Hercules dual charger here. We do have the Hercules heat gun and a couple of batteries. So just to give you an idea that maybe here sometime soon down the road, we might be trying out a couple of the new Hercules products that are coming in. So stay tuned for those. We'll put some of those things to the test as far as automotive cordless tools are concerned. All right, drawer number 2. So this one here is a Matco vacuum. It's pneumatic. You guys might have saw this in a quick 1-minute short video. And then I've got a various assortment of feeler gauges and straight edges in this drawer for precision work, right? Like adjusting valves, checking lash, checking gap, you know, and it just depends on what it is you're working on. In this top drawer, I've got this precision straight edge. So if I'm trying to see if a manifold, like an exhaust manifold's warped, intake manifold's warped, or a head gasket's warped, like on the head, if it's warped on the head, is it warped on the engine side, those kinds of things, that's where those things come in handy. Okay, so those are the 2 drawers for you for today. I'll add another one in the next video. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. We are back at the house. So what more can we possibly talk about, elaborate, or communicate with one another? Just how far down does the rabbit hole go as far as being a mechanic in this industry? The know-how, the tools, everything else that we've been talking about all day today. I did say that do the tools make or break you as a mechanic? And it can and it cannot all at the same exact time. So let's talk about a couple of other things. How about pay? How about pay? Okay. If all you've done is work on a couple of things at your house, maybe do some oil changes for some friends, family, take tires off, etc. You've changed a couple serpentine belts. How valuable are you to a mom and pop shop or a dealership with, let's just say, 0 experience? They don't consider that experience. Some might say, okay, so he's dabbled in the trade a little bit. Dabbling can get you your foot in the door. That's a thing. But let's take it just another little step further. What would you do in high school? Okay, I actually did some fabrication work in high school. I did some fabrication work for fun. And as an automotive technician, you're still going to have moments, especially at an independent shop, sometimes at a dealership, where you're having to do fabrication. Not a lot of people know how to weld. So by knowing how to weld, you have just increased your worth, okay? Your training jacket, if you will. In the military, we have what was called a training jacket. All the courses you went to, all the certifications that you got along the way, how long you've been in, all these things got taken into consideration to include your education. What tools did you have to bring to the table? And it all fit inside your training jacket. So, aside from your generic hand tools, your cordless tools, your pneumatic tools, your scan tools, the knowledge base, okay, going to school, having certifications, going to a dealership, and then being sent off for personalized training to open up your training jacket a little bit more. All the little tiny BS courses that people don't want to take as mechanics that you do take, like the little U-Connect courses, the Mopar courses, these little sales pitch courses you take. All these things help round you off and make you more and more a complete tech. It's more than just hand tools at a certain point. It's more than just being a mechanic and only working on cars. It's more than just being a Chrysler technician or a Ford technician and only working on one lineup, because I'm going to tell you about some mechanics and technicians that you are going to run into. There's a few of them. They're very hard-headed, and this is the direction that they go. Okay, you got your steering, suspension, and brakes guy. Does not want anything to do with heavy line whatsoever, could care less about cylinder heads, engine jobs, transmission jobs. In fact, if there was a way for him to keep his job by just doing steering, suspension, brakes, alignment, struts, shocks, etc., and stick to that and make his money, he's happy. And there are shops that need people just like that. You might actually have an electrician guru. He wants to know the question mark, right? Like Keith DeFazio, like your Polly's Auto, like your Brandon Deals, like your Cody's Diagnostics, like your South Main Auto, okay? These guys want to know the question mark. Some of these guys are a little bit more well-rounded than others, but some of these guys really just focus on electrical diagnosis and diagnosis of sensors, and they really get involved in the books. They are very book-bound, and they're very knowledgeable, and they know the system inside and out, which helps them to be better diagnosticians, so they don't have to do the R&R. They don't have to do the heavy line. Not to say that they didn't have to at one point, but maybe now they've gotten so far into what it is they're good at. That's their niche. That's the area of expertise that they have as an automotive mechanic or technician. And you guys got guys like moi, right? More R&R, more teardown, cylinder heads, engine jobs, quick R&R. Doesn't matter if it's steering, suspension, brakes, alignments, engine, cylinder heads, rear ends, etc. You ask me to take it apart and put it back together, I can. And more times than not, I've gotten used to doing it without a book, okay? Having a book can be beneficial when it comes to torque specs, but that's about all I look at it for. I don't really look at it for like how to take it apart. There are some times that I might get stuck in a spot where I'm like, okay, the easiest route might be to recover the refrigerant and take the compressor out. I think I can snake the compressor over here and do it this way. And I might try that. Doesn't work, I might go take a look at the book. They say they end up recovering the refrigerant. Okay, well, at least I tried. At least I found a way that didn't work, and that helps me. That creates experience, and next thing you know, overall, it makes me a little bit faster. Some people say, no, are you kidding me? It's faster if you go to the book. It tells you step by step on how to do it and why. Of course you ran into a situation where you couldn't remove the compressor and set it to the side. If you would have looked in the book, you would have saw that. Au contraire, my friend, there have been a handful of jobs that I have done where it says specifically to recover the refrigerant and remove the compressor when you didn't have to. So no, that's not fair assessment to say based off of one job that I wasn't able to. This is all trial and error. You're going to figure this stuff out as you go through the world of wrenching. So what have we learned today? If nothing else, I hope you guys actually learned that some tools can help you. There are certain things that you can learn from yourself, from your own mistakes that can help you. Overall, we're all trying to be more productive at the end of the day, okay? Take it for food for thought. You're going to buy a tool that's killer expensive and realize you could have bought something cheaper and you didn't need the expensive thing and it would have done the same exact job. You're going to run into situations where you buy a cheap tool that should have done the same exact thing that didn't last any more than one use and you realize you should have stepped it up. You're going to buy a tool that's right in the middle that you might have got 3 to 4 uses out of and you realize you should have bought the creme de la creme. The most expensive Gucci is F tool, okay? These things do exist, but they only exist through experience. And that's why a lot of you, to include myself, are on YouTube watching, sharing, and giving our opinion about certain situations and things that we ran into along the way. And without that transparency of being able to share that with everybody, how would you guys that are just starting out know where exactly you fall in line and what tools or what kind of education you may or may not need? There's a lot of channels out there that say, you don't need any education, man. You ain't got to go to college. Just jump in and start doing it, okay? But I'll tell you what, I don't think I would have gotten to the level that I got to if I'd not had my education first. I did take a 2-year certificate, working towards a 2-year degree. I bounced out one math class away from an AAS. I decided to just go ahead and roll. Took me less than a year at a dealership to get up to the top tier platform. I've known some guys that went into dealerships, no college experience, a little bit of high school kind of background and twisting wrenches on the side. 5 years later, still a glorified lube tech. Might be the lead lube tech at his shop, but never moved from that position. I know a lot of guys that decided that they only wanted to do one particular aspect of the automotive world, like steering, suspension, and brakes, like diagnostics, like heavy line, like AC work, okay? Like interior work. Those guys have stuck to that and they've stayed to that. If you're one of those kind of guys that wants to be specifically in one area, these guys don't buy tools outside of their comfort zone. Shane, prime example, worked for Ron's Automotive, worked with him the entire time I was there, came back, he's not there anymore, now he's managing over at an auto parts store. He was steering, suspension, and brakes. The man didn't buy anything that wasn't necessity to what it was that he did at that shop. I knew a diagnostic guy, did not buy anything that was not necessary to what it was that he did as a diagnostic guy. I'm a heavy line guy, and I worked on everything. Euros, domestics, Asian, didn't matter. There's a lot of tools to buy. So I had a lot of tools that I bought. My girlfriend actually told me, she's like, I dated this one guy way back when, and I just couldn't understand how he was in the career for so long and didn't have that many tools, and he was able to do it for so many years. I said, well, he's a foreman, right? Did a lot of electrical stuff. Makes sense. He was a diagnostician. Probably didn't need anything. Probably had somebody else do the work. Everyone has their spot. Everyone has their specific place that they want to be. You just have to determine where you want to be, and I think that'll help aid you in the future of like what it is that you decide to buy and not buy. Okay? I've been in and out of tools my entire life, especially with the last 13 years of wrenching. I buy some things, I try them out, I share my opinion, I move on. At any rate, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. I know this video was long, but I hope it made sense. And it wasn't going to be a short video because there was too many different things for me to discuss with you guys for it to be a short video. I couldn't do it short. And short and long. That's all I got for now. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers. Deuces.